Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Have you ever wondered why some men, even when they are not in love, feel deeply compelled to stay, to protect, and to sacrifice everything for a woman? This question touches the core of human psychology. Because when a man is asked to marry a dying woman, it is not romance he is chasing. It is responsibility, compassion, and something far greater than himself. Men often obsess over women not just because of beauty or attraction, but because women symbolize meaning in their lives. In this story, the dying woman becomes more than a partner. She becomes a reason for him to step into his highest form of manhood. When a woman faces her final moments, she does not beg for material things. She does not ask for wealth. She does not ask for beauty to remain. She asks for security for the one she loves most, her daughter. That request alone shows the true power women carry. Even in weakness, they shape the destiny of others. For men, this kind of request awakens something primal, a sense of duty that often outweighs desire. A man may resist love. He may resist commitment when it is for himself. But when a woman trusts him with her last breath, he cannot walk away. And here lies the profound truth. Men obsess over women not because they are flawless, but because women embody a kind of trust and vulnerability that men secretly crave to be responsible for. Men want to be chosen, not because of what they have, but because of who they can become for a woman. This is why, in the title story, the request of the dying woman shakes the man's entire life. He realizes that this decision is not about convenience. It is about identity. Will he be the kind of man who ignores suffering, or will he step into the impossible role of protector even when love is not promised in return? For you, as women listening to this, understand this. Men may seem complicated, distant, or careless at times, but the truth is, when you trust a man with something sacred, when you give him responsibility, you awaken his obsession. Not the shallow kind, but the kind that makes him endure ridicule, sacrifice, and even loneliness, just to uphold your trust. This is why the man in the story accepted a dying woman's plea, knowing society would question him. His obsession was not lust, it was legacy. He wanted to prove, to himself and to the world, that the love of a woman, even in death, could transform him into someone greater. So what should women do with this truth? Never underestimate the power of your voice, your requests, your presence. Do not believe that your value lies only in your appearance or your youth, because even at the edge of life, this woman shaped a man's destiny. When you understand that men are drawn to your trust, your vulnerability, and your belief in them, you stop chasing attention and instead command respect. The lesson is clear. Women hold the keys to the deepest parts of men's souls, and when they use that power not to control, but to inspire, they create bonds stronger than death. That is why in this story, the man's decision was not just about marriage. It was about becoming the kind of man who would carry a woman's last wish like a sacred mission. And if men can rise to that, then women must realize, you are not just loved. You are the reason men choose who they become. Why would a man choose sacrifice over freedom, even when no one forces him to? This is the kind of psychology that most people overlook, yet it reveals so much about how men think and why they often obsess over women. In the story, when the man accepts to marry a dying woman, he knows it is not going to be easy. He knows society will judge him, whisper behind his back, and perhaps even reject him for standing by someone who is not considered worthy in their eyes. Yet he accepts, and this choice is not simply about the woman. It is about who he becomes because of her. Men, by nature, are wired to take on challenges that give meaning to their lives. A woman's presence, even her dying wish, can awaken in a man the desire to fight battles he would otherwise walk away from. This is why, you must understand, men obsess not over perfection, but over purpose. When a man sees that his sacrifice can give security, protection, and dignity to a woman or her child, he feels alive. He feels like he has something worth standing for. In the story, his agreement to marry the dying woman is not rooted in passion, but in a sacred responsibility that gives his life a new direction. Women often underestimate how deeply men want to be needed. You may think men only chase beauty, but the truth is, beauty fades, while responsibility grows. A man obsesses over the woman who makes him feel that his life matters, that his sacrifice has weight, that his choices are not wasted. In this story, the dying woman's request makes him understand that protecting her daughter will give him a role that no one else can replace. And in that role, he finds strength greater than desire. But let us not pretend sacrifice is easy. This man knows what people will say, that he married a dying woman for pity, that he ruined his own chance at love, that he chained himself to a burden not his own. Yet he chooses it anyway. Why? Because when men are truly touched by a woman's trust, they would rather suffer judgment than betray her faith in them. And this is the secret you must never forget. Men are not obsessed with control. They are obsessed with the women who awaken their honor. So what should women do with this knowledge? Do not chase men with appearances. Do not beg them for attention. Do not fear being forgotten. Instead, let your strength, your trust, and your belief in their responsibility call out to them. Men will walk away from temporary pleasure, but they will stay where they feel chosen for something bigger than themselves. The dying woman in this story understood that, even in her weakness, she knew her request would bind him not with chains, but with meaning. And that is the deeper lesson. The man's sacrifice is not a tragedy. It is a transformation. He becomes the kind of man who defines love, not by what he gains, but by what he is willing to give. And if men can rise to that level, then women must realize your influence is not small. It is the power to turn sacrifice into legacy, and obsession into devotion that outlives even death. Why is it that the truth we fear the most is often the truth that frees us the most? This question lies at the heart of the daughter's story, because as she grows older, under the protection of the man who married her dying mother, she begins to uncover secrets about who she truly is. The shocking truth that she is the child of a forbidden love across racial lines becomes the very thing that threatens to break her identity, yet also the very thing that teaches her the meaning of love beyond blood. Psychology tells us that identity is shaped not only by who we are, but by how others see us. The daughter lives with whispers, stares, and judgments. She feels the silent sting of society labeling her as different. Yet in those moments of doubt, it is the man who raises her, the one who made the ultimate sacrifice, who becomes her shield. And here is where women must understand how men truly obsess. Not over perfection, not over beauty, but over the chance to define themselves through the act of protecting. He sees in her not shame, but innocence. Not a reminder of betrayal, but a reason to honor the promise he made to her mother. Men crave purpose, and women are often the source of that purpose. When a man accepts a child who is not his own, when he defends her against cruelty, he is not doing it for applause. He is doing it because the trust of a woman, his late wife in this case, lives on through the child. Every insult he endures, Every judgment he faces becomes fuel to prove that his choice was right. This is why women must never underestimate the depth of male obsession. When you give a man a responsibility that touches his soul, he will carry it even when it breaks him, even when it costs him everything. For the daughter, the truth is painful. She learns she was born into a world that did not want her to exist. But she also learns that she was chosen, not abandoned. She was given a stepfather who valued her not for where she came from, but for who she was becoming. This is the kind of love women must recognize. Men may not always speak in poetry, but their sacrifices are their declarations. They obsess not over words, but over actions that prove their devotion. So what should women take from this? Stop questioning whether you are enough because of where you come from, what you look like, or what others say about you. Understand that the men who matter will not obsess over those things. They will obsess over the trust you place in them, the belief that they can protect, guide, and love you beyond conditions. The Dying Woman's Daughter teaches us that identity is not determined by bloodline, but by who stands beside you when the world turns its back. And that is the powerful truth. Men become who they are when women trust them with what matters most, even their children, even their legacy. The man in this story did not just raise a girl, he raised a lesson for all of us. That love is not always about who gives you life, but about who chooses to stand by your life when it would have been easier to walk away. Why is it that the same society that praises love in words often despises it in action? This question cuts deep into the story because when the man chose to marry a dying woman and raise her daughter, he did not just inherit responsibility. He inherited the judgment of a world too blinded by prejudice to see the purity of his choice. People whispered, neighbors mocked, and relatives questioned his sanity. They said he tied himself to a burden. They said he destroyed his chances of living a normal life. They said he became a fool. And yet, instead of breaking him, those very attacks shaped him into someone stronger. This is the hidden truth about men that women often overlook. Men do not grow through comfort. They grow through resistance. When society pushed against him, when cruelty tried to shame him, he used it as fuel to prove that the love he carried was real. Men obsess over women, not because they are perfect, but because women give them a cause worth enduring pain for. The ridicule became a test, and he chose to pass that test for the sake of the woman's last wish and the daughter's future. Every insult he faced in public was an opportunity to teach the girl that hate is learned, but so is love. Every door that closed on them became a chance to show her that rejection cannot define her worth. And here lies the deeper psychology. Men are at their strongest when they feel they are protecting something sacred. Women must understand this. When you entrust a man with something precious, you awaken in him an obsession not to fail. That obsession is not shallow. It is not temporary. It is the kind that transforms him into a shield against a world that may never understand. The daughter grew up hearing whispers that she did not belong, but every time she looked at the man who chose her, she saw the opposite. She saw a man who endured humiliation, but never let her feel unwanted. She saw a man who lost friends, but never let her lose her sense of belonging. She saw a man who absorbed the cruelty of society, just so she could experience love without conditions. And that is where women must recognize their power. Men do not obsess over applause. They obsess over the trust that makes them capable of facing storms no one else would survive. So what should women do with this truth? Do not fear the judgment of people, because the love that is real will endure even when society spits on it. Do not waste your energy on proving yourself to those who choose hate, because the man who truly loves you will turn that hate into lessons that strengthen your soul. The dying woman's last wish gave birth to a life where love was constantly under attack, but also a life where a man showed what devotion really means. And here is the powerful talk. Society can shame, society can reject, society can curse, but it cannot destroy a love that is carried as a responsibility, a mission, and a legacy. Men who are truly awakened by a woman's trust do not bend under pressure. They rise against it. And women must realize, you are the ones who give men the reason to rise. Why do people often realize the depth of someone's sacrifice only after the truth is revealed? This question speaks directly to the man's story, because for years he carried the weight of a dying woman's last wish, and the daughter never fully understood what it cost him. The shocking revelation comes when she learns that he did not just marry her mother out of kindness. He gave up his own dreams, his own reputation, and even his chance to pursue the kind of love he may have longed for. And yet, he never spoke of it because true sacrifice is silent, and true devotion does not seek applause. Psychology teaches us that men rarely voice the burdens they carry. Instead, they express love through action, through endurance, through what they give up in silence. Women often believe men obsess only over beauty or passion, but the deeper truth is that men obsess over the women who give their lives direction, even when that direction requires them to let go of their own desires. In this story, the man's entire existence became a mission, honoring a dying woman's trust and protecting her daughter as if she were his own. His obsession was not about possession, it was about devotion. The daughter, growing older, begins to see pieces of the truth. She notices how people treat her stepfather with pity or scorn. She realizes he never remarried, never chased personal happiness, never lived for himself. She starts to understand that everything he sacrificed was because of her mother's last request and because of his promise to love a child who was not his by blood. And this realization becomes a mirror. She sees not only what he lost, but also what he gained, an identity built not on selfishness, but on selflessness. This is where women must understand the psychology of men on a deeper level. A man can chase pleasure anywhere, but he will only sacrifice everything where he feels his existence has meaning. That is why men obsess over women who awaken their sense of duty, their sense of honor, their sense of legacy. A woman's trust, even her dying words, can shape a man's entire destiny. And when men accept that role, they rarely turn back. They live with it until their last breath, even if no one notices. For the daughter, the shocking truth does not weaken her. It strengthens her. She realizes she was not raised out of pity, but out of purpose. She understands that her stepfather's silence was his love language. His refusal to complain was his way of shielding her from guilt. And she learns the most powerful lesson, that real love is not measured by what people give when it is easy, but by what they surrender when it costs them everything. So what should women take from this? Understand the depth of your influence. Do not mistake a man's quiet sacrifices as lack of passion. Recognize that when men choose to give up their own desires for you, it is not weakness. It is the highest form of obsession, the kind that outlasts beauty, desire, and even death. The dying woman's daughter did not just inherit protection. She inherited proof that love is not always about romance, but about the legacy of sacrifice. And here is the final truth. Men who are touched by a woman's trust may lose the world, but they gain a purpose that the world can never take away. Women must know, your power is not just in how men look at you, but in how you shape who they decide to become. And sometimes, that power is so strong, it turns sacrifice into the greatest love story ever told. Thanks for watching the video.